Welcome to UberCube.
Stay a while and listen.
What am I listening to?
That was it. Now you carry on.
I'm going to go play Diablo.
I don't understand what's happening right now.
You don't have to. You're supposed to just realize that there are three people and you continue with your flow of introduction. Why aren't you reading my mind, Anthony? Are you not reading my mind right now?
I'm trying. He told me not to look at his face anymore. All right. So welcome to UberCube, the podcast where we discuss all things Diablo that has become a cube.
Nice.
Stu is just getting all of the episodes. He earned it. He worked so hard on that notepad last week that we decided to give him another one that he doesn't have a notepad for, and we're just going to do this impromptu.
This isn't for me.
You have been begging.
It's for everybody.
This is going to be a community outreach type thing. So, Stu, I want to ask something before we dig in real quick.
Go ahead.
And we're going to have our drinks in a minute and all the things we're going to do. But The question was, what happened to the Diablo Cube? Where did it go? Like, listeners want to know.
This is the Diablo Cube.
Okay, what happened to the Doom Cube? Because you seem to like the letter D. And just...
What happened to the Doom Cube? Okay, so the Doom Cube originally, my vision for that was going to be a 180 card Jund colors, black, red, green cube that was inspired by Doom. Okay? OG Doom games from back in the 90s. id Software, Romero, Legends. So when I first started building this cube, I planned on it being a very artistically driven cube. Okay? So you've got giant spiders and big blobby dudes with rocket launchers, and then you've got imps, and you've got zombies with shotguns and pistols and all that kind of stuff. So that was my vision for the cube. I wanted this artistic driven cube. I figured 180 was a good number. If I figured I wanted to expand on that at some point, I could. And I worked on this cube on and off. I strung it along with what started out to be a very significant amount of enthusiasm and excitement that, I'll be honest, started to wane fairly quickly. And the reason it started to wane was because I started to realize just how, first of all, how difficult it was going to be for me to stay true to the color identity, the Jund color identity with the cube, as well as to stay true to the artistic vibe of the original Doom games and how I could port that over to a cube environment.
In a fantasy genre-based game.
Basically. So fast forward, after I kind of, I didn't abandon it per se, but life got busy, things happened, and I kind of just put it on the back burner, had other things was going on, and then I came back and I thought, let me look at this and really get into my own head, not just about the cube itself, but why I was doing it. And I really had a bit of a come to Jesus moment, if you will, right? And I thought to myself, I have been spending all this time trying to make a cube where it's artistically driven. And really, the artistic side of it was kind of the focus, right? With a little bit of leeway here or there. But then I started to think about, well, why did I create this cube in the first place? Was it just because I was so in love with the fact that this game had imps and cyber demons and, mancubuses and all the other...
yes.
No, it wasn't.
In a BFG.
But that wasn't it. It was so much more than that. It was gameplay. It was the complexity of the level design. And I will say this, the complexity in the level design from really the very classic id games of Doom and Quake, the level design really is something of a wonder to behold. I cannot stress enough just how complex and fascinating the level design is. And just everything that went into the game. So I thought, man, I am really doing this cube and my idea for this so much of a disservice, right? I am focusing so hardcore on the fact that I want this to be an artistic cube that I'm not focusing on all the other aspects of this video game franchise, this video game series that made me fall in love with it. And I'm doing myself a disservice. I'm doing the cube a disservice. I'm doing Doom a disservice. And when I kind of had that epiphany, I put it on the back burner and I decided to work on a new project.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and crack open our drinks, and we will talk about that. And what we're going to try to do, Stu has done something unique before we press here into the drinks. I had to ask him about, like, going back to the Doom Cube. He was very, for lack of better words, a bit territorial in the aspect of it, because he said that my vision wasn't aligned with his vision. I'm like, let's complete this cube. I wanted to get this cube done for him. But out of respect for him, he asked me to kind of back off, stave off, don't, just let me do my thing, let me cook. And that's where we ended up at, right? And it's a process, and a lot of people have experienced this in their cubes. So now we're going to open this up. He wants help with this Diablo Cube. He wants innovation. He wants to be vulnerable to the community. So we're asking for not only our play group who are going to play this cube, but the listeners. If you see something, you look at this list, and as we talk about it, and we're going to keep this kind of short and sweet, and there'll be more episodes to come. What he's really wanting from you is to reach out to the UberCube Discord, email the UberCube MTG podcast, or whatever means you need, or DM.
Send emails, whatever you need, whatever you
but
feel.
He's trying to harvest ideas so that he can make this better. So we're going to do a little bit of cooking here together.
And let's do. I want to say this. Let's do our drinks, because the point that you made right at the beginning of that statement needs from. I want to address that, and it's something that. Not to, make too fine a point of it as far as a public statement, but I think it's something that I want to share.
Okay, let's go. All right.
May, what you drinking?
Once again, I'm just being responsible. I'm just drinking some water.
Well, good for you.
I'm having Green Man. It is a brewery that's located out of Asheville, North Carolina, and it is the Nerd Nectar Hazy IPA.
Good luck with that.
I'm going to have my Nerd Nectar now, baby.
All right. Well, I'm having me another one of these Sweetwater Easy IPAs.
Let's crack them open, and you can tear into that conversation.
All right. So let me make a statement as far as when you went all the way back to the fact that you said I was being territorial and I was being protective, and I kind of, I don't disagree. I was. Do you want to know why I was?
Why?
Because it was my first cube.
Yeah, I understand.
And I felt like I wanted the opportunity to fail. I didn't expect to succeed with this immaculate 180 cube that I was then going to transform into a 360 or a 540 cube somewhere down the line and say, look, guys, I'm so natural at this cube building ability that here's perfection. First, I never expected that. But what I wanted was, here is my first effort, and then to be able to reflect on that down the line. Now I've had, and I think I did get to 180 cards with the Doom Cube, at some point, and then it went down to 130, and then up to 160, and then down to 140, and then up to 177, and then back down to 150. So I went all over the place trying to figure out the numbers. But the reason why I like that we're doing this now is because the Diablo Cube has the numbers that I've put my mark on it, and now I'm ready for the help.
So something that's interesting, though, as we talk about this, is I was so at ease with the idea of helping Stu with the Doom Cube that was his first baby. He didn't want me to help him because I played all these games. I'm 47 years old. I played Wolfenstein. I played Quake when I was in Turkey. I did it all the time. I played Doom. I love these games. So I had feedback to offer from a thematic, I guess, world building design to the world of Doom. Now we're moving over to Diablo. I've never played Diablo. I've seen people play Diablo.
Shame.
I don't have the interest in those type of games. That's not my type of game. I don't like playing those video games.
Shame.
It's too busy. There's too much crap going on.
Shame.
I can't tell what the hell's happening. It's just exploding on screens and blue circles and moving around and things exploding.
Yeah, I don't. The newer ones are definitely super duper busy with these very massive and colorful and overly dramatic spells and things going on. One of the things that I will say that I don't like about the newer RPG games is there's so much. It's all about the big flashiness and the massive numbers. It's one of the I've played Diablo 3, which I think is in a better position now than it was a few years ago. I played Diablo 4 very briefly. I don't know if I'll ever go back to the franchise. What this really was about for me was about Diablo 1 and Diablo 2. Diablo 1 being such a groundbreaking video game. Originally was going to be turn-based, which I think is so amazing because Magic is a turn-based game. They actually came back to the developers and said, hey, it's wonderful. We love the vibe of this game. You have got to make this action. You've got to make this live. We don't just want you make a turn and then the monsters move a square and then you move a square. No. This has to be a live kind of experience, right? So, but I didn't want the big flashiness. like it is in there. I wanted it to be kind of this slow burn.
So I know like a Heroes of Might and Magic type 3 type thing, right? I understand when you're talking about moving the hexes and you build up your spells and you have your mana.
XCOM,
I
games
understand.
like that.
I like those type. I always struggle with these. Like StarCraft is. I like StarCraft and I like the other one. What's the one with the? What's the other?
Warcraft?
No, yeah, Warcraft. I loved Warcraft.
Wow.
And all
just
these
original?
type, like with the RTSs or whatever. These weird,
Yeah.
I like
loved
these,
RTSs.
I like these type games, but they're so fast paced. If you fall, you falter, you lose. You don't develop resources fast enough, you're dead. I like the pacing of the turn based games because my brain can work with that long game strategy. I can, for a person that says they don't like aggro, it just blows my mind that you like a video game that's so fast moving, so on your toes that you have to decide right now what you want to do. How did you come to the idea of you switched gears? You fell off the idea. You felt, I guess, disenchanted with the idea of Doom. You moved on. You felt like you weren't doing it justice.
Correct.
Was there a reason why? Was it the paint palette that you were provided by typically a fantasy-driven game, not providing you the tools?
Honestly, what it was is that even though I have loved the Doom games from back in the day, like Diablo 1 was I would say the reason why I am such a nerd for video games, period. And Diablo 2 was why I probably failed the third year of college. Because I've spent an absolute... I don't think there'll ever be any activity in my life that I could ever do that I will have more hours in than playing Diablo 2.
So we've got this list up, which I'll share in the show notes. May, did you play Diablo? Are you familiar with this game? I'm not. I got a lot of questions.
So I have played Diablo likes, but I have not played Diablo itself.
I get the premise. It's kind of a dungeon crawler. Is that correct? Feel free to laugh at me, audience. It's just not a game I ever played.
You're absolutely correct. So the original one was a true dungeon crawler. You went into a cathedral in a town and you basically went down 16 levels fighting increasingly difficult hordes of hell all the way down to the 16th level and where you fought Diablo himself.
So are the cards you're choosing, are you focusing on type or is it artistically driven? Because I see a lot of clerics in your list. I see, obviously, humans. Giants, I guess, is what we're looking over. I think we're going to trip across a few gargoyles, wizards. What else we got as I kind of peruse through this list? It's interesting, the choices. It's definitely a low-powered type of idea. You're leaning into that big time. You've got some skeletons. You've got some zombies. You've got some bats. Birds. Are these characters from the game of Diablo?
Everything that I have in this cube is inspired in some way, shape, or form by mechanics that exist in the game. And this is everything from the monsters that you're going to fight, the classes that you can play as, the spells that you're going to cast, even the lore of the game series. Every aspect of it, of this cube, in some way is inspired directly by... So if you bring in... I would love to get... I've got a friend of mine in Canada. His name's Andrew. It was a great friend of mine through college. He's the person that basically the reason why I play Magic. He and I first met and bonded over a love for this video game. I will guarantee you that he would be able to come in and he would pick every single card and say, here is why this is in here, because it references this or this or this. So, yes.
So I have a question. We're going to just dive into a card because I use this for a different thing than you do. I love the thematic design. So I just jumped over a card that caught my attention. I'm going to give you my perspective. Again, I am the person who doesn't know Diablo. So I'm going to try to frame this up. You got Fane the Broker in here for 2 colorless and a black. You got a legendary creature, human warlock. Tap, sacrifice a creature. Put 2/1/1 counters on target creature. Tap, remove a counter from a creature you control. Create a treasure token. Tap. Sacrifice an artifact, create a 2/1 white and black Inkling creature token with flying. Now, according to this art, the Inkling is sitting on the shoulder of Fane. Looks like a familiar to me. I see a shopkeep here. As I'm thinking like Zelda, I'm going to go purchase goods. But I also see a human warlock, so I'm asking myself, is this a character in the game? Or is this a person running a shop in a village? Is that a thing?
No, there are NPCs that have like stores, but no, this is not a store.
So that'd be a character.
This is, so this is more adjacent to a necromancer So Finn has the ability to be able to sacrifice things, sacrifice is a theme within the game as well. He has this familiar. There are familiars in Diablo, right? The necromancer has golems and stuff that run around. Golems aren't necessarily a heavily supported type, but you're going to see these adjacents within. And so we're here recording, and here it is. Anthony has pulled up Southern Paladin, right? This is a card that we talked about a little bit, maybe a lot. And Anthony's opinion was this card, as much as I would love to include this card because it just fits the Paladin character of Diablo.
You can. Oh, here, I want to interrupt you.
But it's very linear.
Are you? Well, I'm asking the question. So I'm going to read what this card does. So there's a couple of these in here. So May, I want your cook on this one too. This is what the audience is going to be incorporated. So Stu's trying to do this balance between we already talked about the hang up with the Dube Cube, and he wanted to be true to the game and the artistic direction of the game, and he felt like with the colors that were on the palette at the time, outside of some Universes Beyond, Fallout, maybe a few other things, some secret layers, it's really hard to build that cube and get it all right. I understand that. That was a hard thing to take on.
Yes.
But 180 was fair. I feel like I can finish it for you. We may talk about that later.
You should do that.
The challenge is, though, now we're in a fantasy genre, so you have more colors on the palette so the artist can paint, and you're in 5 colors. Now, he's chosen kind of these pillar cards, Southern Paladin for 2 colors and white. You get a Summon Knight. That's an old school card from, what is that, Exodus, I guess it is? Or I can't remember the one with the book, but it's close enough. It's
good enough.
Good enough. We're there, close enough. 2 white, tap, destroy target red permanent. Everything about this card, but from the art, everything's great. The challenge I had from him is it's hard for us as curators to, we're trying to paint, we're trying to do like a Pollock on the wall. We're trying to do a Warhol on the wall.
Sure.
We want to make a Monet, and we're hoping everyone appreciates that piece of art and that everyone's going to chuckle, I don't play Diablo. I'm your target audience here, right? You need to get me, not that you need to get me, but I'm going to play this cube. So I'm going to be your odd duck here going, I don't get this card. This doesn't make any sense to me.
Yes.
I understand it's a knight. I get the premise of a dungeon crawler. I've played my fair share.
Mm-hmm.
But then this card says destroy target red permanent. This would be devastating to the mono red deck outside of that, or maybe even some Grixis type of mixture or mix and mash, but other than that, this card is sideboard relegated. So where is that fine line, May, where we go from thematic representation to mechanical design that players can enjoy and want to play it again?
And I want to follow this up. May, tell me this. This is a 4-drop, okay?
I didn't even read the stats because it's so
It's
bad.
a 4-drop. It's a 3/3. So it's not like it's just a 1/1 and it's just incredibly fragile. It at least has a decent power toughness. But that's all it is when it comes down. There's nothing inherently that's going to give it haste, at least not right now. And it is 2 mana and tap it for an ability that is quite linear. So in your opinion, would you look at this card without even understanding the rest of the list and say, you're going to have to really convince me that this card belongs in this cube and this card isn't just going to be pick 15 chaff?
And it's sitting by a Sublime Archangel. I just want to throw that out too.
So,
lot to digest.
I was asked a lot of things, but I think I can sum this up with just one answer. And the answer is that you shouldn't sacrifice gameplay for the sake of flavor. I know that it is very important to kind of have our artistic palette and put our little piece on the wall, so to speak. But this is supposed to be a cube, a playable environment, and whatnot. And it's not that this card is strictly unplayable, but I think that you hit the nail on the head that this is going to be like pick 15. This is not somebody people are going to immediately go towards. It's a sideboard pick at best, right? And especially when you look at the next card down being Sublime Archangel, then you start to wonder, why is it in here? What purpose does it serve? And
it becomes a 4/3.
It can be good for artistic value. So, for example, I have Scorned Villager in my Fake Cube, right? It is an outlier. I have no other transform cards in there. It's a human in green. Like, in most cases, it is supposed to be a standout, but that's also why it works, is because it's supposed to specifically reference, this is Little Red Riding Hood, but the twist is that she's the wolf, right? in that specific context, the outlier becomes part of the piece. Do you feel like that Southern Paladin fulfills that same role for this cube?
Well, before he answers, I have another example to explain. I have an immediate solution, and I'll let you cook. But I want to throw in something that you can do to still represent what you're doing. And I have a couple of them. So in my Fem Cube, I have certain art pieces, certain cards that are bad. They don't play, but I love the art. I think the art's gorgeous. Someone took a lot of time with it. So what did I use for it? I put it inside of a spacer as an artistic piece that goes inside the cube. So when you're separating my basic lands, you still see this lovely art. But the card's just not playable up to the speed of the cube.
Sure.
And the same thing in my Munson Cube, which is my metal cube, I wrote an entire album cover about the card Joven. And my buddy Sam so graciously gave me an artist proof signed of Joven. It is one of my favorite Magic cards. It is completely misaligned and unplayable in that environment. If people are saying you should force it in, I would. If I put it in, it's literally going to be the 15th pick every time.
No way. Absolutely no. There's no way. I am not pack one-ing that card every time. Every time.
But
because
you get the bid.
That to me is more of it's a story card. I want to be able to play a card like that and say, do you remember we played that night and I played Joven and it was awesome and here's all the cool things that I got to do with it? That's a fun story for me.
I gave you an option, though.
I care more about that than I'm trying to min-max for every single time I'm trying to win the game, right? I'm not always trying to broadside bombardier a Fury for 7 damage to kill somebody. Sometimes I just want to do something fun.
I have another alternate solution then. So take this Paladin. The art's fantastic.
Fabulous art.
The card kills a red card. What if we just put like an aura on it? What if we just put a Rancor on it? What if you could still make it into
There's
a stat?
no Rancor.
You could make it follow my flow, though. You could still keep this card. You just have to have a way to make this card better than it is next to Sublime Archangel. Still knowing that this card will go 15th compared to a Sublime Archangel. The joke being is Sublime Archangel gives other creatures Exalted. So now we've got a 4-3 instead of a 3-3. I get the argument. You just got to find a way to balance that equation. So if you can do that, power outliers are fine. Being okay with, I guess, your artistic vision, being okay with or not offended, and you're not a person to become offended,
right?
That this card is going to be relegated to a sideboard for most times, and on that rare occasion that someone gets an aura and they're like, well, I guess I have to play this 3-3 for 4 because that's how they're going to look at it. On the rare occasion that it gets a 4-4, it gets a red player, outside of that, throw an aura on it, make it special, and that's okay.
I understand. And look, as absolutely perfect as this card is for the Diablo Cube, and I really cannot overstate just how perfect this is to represent the Paladin class, which is so iconic in Diablo 2 specifically. I cannot agree with May any more than to say I would just be sacrificing a slot in my cube for something that isn't interesting enough or powerful enough for me to say, I want to include this at the expense of something that is going to be more fun and more powerful for the players to experience. If I could, if it just did a little bit more, if there was something else, I would consider including it. This was a very, very early inclusion. I think it's going to go.
I think we can. Well, I don't think you have to go. I think you can put it in the box. I really lean on that.
It might go in the box.
I have another one too, May, to project towards you. So he's kind of tried to explain to me again. I'm not a Diablo player. Question for you: are vampires in Diablo?
Oh yes,
it's a character. Okay, it's a thing.
It's not a character.
It's an enemy.
It's an enemy. Yeah.
Okay. So you've got Vampire Nocturnus in here for 1 colorless and triple black creature vampire. Play the top card of your library revealed. As long as the top card of your library is black, Vampire Nocturnus and other vampire creatures you control get +2/+1 and have flying. Okay, because the cube, I kind of did an oversight on it. It may have changed since. When I looked at it, this card kind of I put a flag on this one immediately because I attempted to run this card as a Lord in Uberbear's Horror Cube, which definitely supports the idea of vampires. And one of the problems, and May, you've experienced this, you and I have both done these kindred type of builds where I wanted to have Typal or Kindred or whatever as a theme, goblins or vampires or werewolves or whatnot, right? That lords became problematic. Now you're getting into a lord that has a high cost, high reward, very low floor. It's a 3/3 stat monster, and you also are giving up information. And I wanted to look at it not from a Diablo perspective, because I'm not in the world.
Sure.
I'm a person that's going to say...
You're looking at it from a cube perspective. That's what I need.
I'm a person who wants to play it.
Exactly.
But this is still a painting, and I want to respect...
Of course.
Because you can still look at a painting, and we're all going to look at it differently. There's very subjective parts to this. This card will sometimes be awesome, just like Joven theoretically would sometimes be awesome. Sometimes the Paladin would be awesome. It has its story times. But the density of vampires is fairly low at the moment because it's not like a high yield situation. It doesn't have... We talked about this in our last episode about you had to have a certain amount of... Was it the quantity of 2/1s or aggressive creatures in order to represent that idea by a lot of people's cube building philosophy?
Yeah.
Same kind of holds true with this creature specifically is looking for vampires. You don't have change.
It's also looking for itself, right? So all you have to do is have a black card on top of your library, and now you've got a 5/4 with flying. It looks at itself.
Well, silence should speak volumes.
I know. Anthony's like, oh, I just read the card. So for all our listeners, Anthony just read the card, and this is something that is quite common with our play group, where Anthony has to read the card and then he finally understands it. God love you, Anthony. This is why.
So
you're
it's
my
a mono
best
black
deck. Could it go in a mono black? Absolutely.
It should.
There is a risk, there is a reward. Yes, if you're playing a mono black or a very heavy black, and do you need to have all of vampire? Do you need to have 20 vampires in your deck to make Vampire Nocturnus a high impact card? No, not necessarily. But if you do have somehow you were able to get a vampire. How many vampires do you really need for your 4-drop to have this much of an impact where it itself becomes a 5/4 if the top card of your library is black, and maybe your 1 or 2-drop is now like a 4/3 with flying?
I don't know. I think this is a question.
I don't know either.
I think it's a question for Bill when we talked about the pockets of synergy.
But hang on, Anthony. This is why Anthony. This isn't good enough. This is why you were supposed to come in and fix this whole cube in 30 minutes of recording.
I think there's too many questions. I think this card's fantastic. I think this card, you could do some... This is kind of like a boss fight. This is a really big creature. It theoretically is a stats monster, a lord. I get it.
I love that you said that.
But you could have something that's a little lower level.
Say that first line again.
Stats monster?
No, the boss
Lord,
fight.
Boss fight?
Boss fight.
So this is your boss fight.
Boss fight. Could this not represent a boss fight, right? Look at the size of the art on the card. It's covered in flames. It has the ability to be large itself, right? So maybe you get the strategy against it. Another deck does, and they can make it not particularly powerful. Or maybe it comes in and it's just completely busted because you've been able to put other vampires on the battlefield. Maybe it's just something that sits and hangs out for another turn or two, right? Because look at some of the other vampires. You've got Sengir Vampire. You've got Treacherous Vampire. You've got other vampires that exist in this cube. Everything doesn't have to be that, look at Mephedros Vampire. 4 colorless, 2 black, creature, vampire, flying. Each creature you control is a vampire in addition to its other creature types, and has, whenever this creature deals damage to a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Now, it already has flying, but now it's +2/+1. So now it's a 5/5. It's for 6. Yes. I also want to make sure that the expectation is that I don't want to support 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop dead, right? So that isn't going to exist in this cube. It's purposely curved out so that you're going to be looking at your 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 drops as where the real juice is going to be worth. Keep me honest on this, because I know that we've talked about where the power bands exist on the cube, and I know that we've only sort of really quickly kind of delved into this now, and if this is a question for later, or if you can answer it now, but look at the list, and if it's something that we have to do later on, but this is what I want. Give me some feedback on that, on having that kind of be the power band for this cube.
All right, I thought you'd never ask. I have been scouring your list.
Good.
I have thoughts. Now, to be clear, I actually see your vision. I see your vision of not wanting to have 1, 2, 3 dead, right? You're not wanting to go for a curve out. You're wanting to go for that kind of mid-range. That's why you can see a majority of your cards kind of exist in this 3, 4, 5 range. Especially if you look in white, you have a majority of 4-drops right now. You could probably switch out Southern Paladin, as we mentioned, which will either move that to another 3-drop or whatnot. But I do have some initial questions for you.
Okay.
So, if we're not looking to do the 1, 2, 3 drops, whatnot, why are we not leaning harder into your equipment section? Because you have the kind of vision here with the equipment, right?
Yes.
You have the vision here with the equipment. You have the vision that they kind of come down early and then they equipped onto your creatures later in the game, right?
Yes.
So I think that one of our focuses shouldn't solely just be on like the flavor aspect, but rather the mechanical flavor, if that makes sense.
It
and
does.
When we think of Diablo as an experience, a big part of that experience is the equipment.
The loot.
The loot.
Yes.
And feeling that experience of our early game is we're getting loot, we're building our stuff, right? We should be leaning into that. So I would recommend that we actually start by cutting miscellaneous cards like Rakdos Cackler. Rakdos Cackler does not meet the vibe. It may meet the aesthetic vibe, but in terms of mechanics, it does not meet the vibe. It does not match the vibes here. We could cut that. We can cut some of these other like one-off aggressive cards. Maybe Watchwolf can go. I'm sure there's a few more in here that you could pick out.
Okay,
I'm actually a big fan of Chain Brute. I think that one's fine.
I need to state this.
It's an aggressive card with cost.
Okay,
right?
I need to state this very quickly. Okay, I was a shapeshift druid werewolf player. Okay, Fury Druids for life. Wolves, I wish there was better support for them. I feel like I've tried to stay true to a good amount of top-end support for werewolves in this cube, and it's been very difficult. So I tried to look for wolves that were a big impact. So be careful on cutting wolves. You may hurt my feelings.
And
I
would also going to add
I'm very
this too,
protective of my wolves.
Based on what we've seen in the whole loot conversation, I understand the concept of dungeon crawlers. Again, never played Diablo, but I understand how to do it. You're going to have kind of your weapons when you kick open the door. You know how you get so many things, and you're like, I've got 15 of these. I don't need this anymore. I'm going to trade this in, and I'm going to get this mythic weapon of some sort. I think you could have some short swords in here, some bone splitters in here. You could have a couple of these, like, I don't want to break your equipment section, but maybe even throw in some colored equipment, but some that aren't great. I love, like, you got Butcher's Cleaver in here. I think that's fun. You've even got Obsidian Battle Axe, which I absolutely love, and we'll find some synergies. But I think there's an opportunity to put a little bit more, maybe break some Singleton, throw in a few little minor, the low end, you keep opening up the chest and you don't get a whole lot. And then I have some other cards you can throw in too. I can give you some because Monopoly has some spare pieces. But you can throw in some treasure type stuff in here. A little treasure theme wouldn't be a bad thing.
I don't disagree because gold drops, right? So gold could potentially represent the treasure as well as the fun of the loot. I will say the reason why the very, very cheap just buff the creature a little bit doesn't exist in there is because, and maybe this is a fault of mine from a mentality perspective, is that I have always associated those kind of cards with, I'm going to put my creatures out, right, very aggressively, early drops, 1, 2, 3 drop. If I don't have anything better to do with my mana, then obviously something like that can be very aggressive and can be a very powerful early play. But then I get the ability to, power up a creature that I've put out for cheap and then move equipment around so I can be defensive as well as aggressive. And that wasn't necessarily how I felt the vibe of the cube was, that I wanted that, okay, the first couple of turns, put your equipment out, they only cost 1 or 2 mana, and then play your big creatures, and then put the equipment on. There is kind of a RPG vibe there. I just didn't want that with low-cost equipment, if that makes sense.
There's some robes and hoods and stuff you can put in here that would be helpful. There's a lot of, if you search equipment on Scryfall, there's a lot of things you could put in that would add to this. Also, rogues would be kind of neat. Am I off base there?
So there are rogues and assassins in there. Yeah. And I will clarify. I will I want to make this point just in case there's more to yours. For this cube, it's very, very possible that I have literally gone on Scryfall and searched every color and every type with no restriction and hit search, advanced search, all printings, and literally looked at every single printing and every card name and every card type to look for ways to make this cube interesting and fit the vibe. So it was a lot of time on it, a lot of time. It's been difficult. It's been difficult to try and find stuff that fits together. It really has been.
It is very daunting. There's a lot of equipment that exists in this game, and having to go through all of them and scour each of their arts is a big ask. However, I'm actually going to rope back to equipments aren't the only thing that you can do early game. So a big part of like a lot of what you've been mentioning is class related and building your kind of character class and whatnot.
Yes.
So my question is, why don't you have class cards in here? What's your hesitation with them?
When you say class cards,
as in they make class cards like druid class.
So they have cleric, paladin, druid. There are class specific cards, and there's things that they all come out early. Then you can pay some mana to level them up, which is great for like the first 3 turns of the game.
Okay,
it's something to do.
This is exactly what I need. This is what I'm talking about.
Pause for a minute.
I'll go through some of these. Builder's talents doesn't necessarily fit. Cleric's class. One of the reasons...
You have a bit of life gain in here.
Yeah, so this was actually, and I may have looked at this, and one of the reasons why I didn't include this was because of Anthony's comments, as we have been known to have issues with in other cubes, is life gain period. What I don't want is for life gain to be such a big aspect of the cube that building it just negates other strategies, or it becomes a case of the life gain versus the non-life gain, or the life gain versus the life gain.
I have a fix for that. Read Warlock's class. It fixes it for you. This card's devastating my 2-headed giant cube.
Okay, Warlock's class. So this is Warlock class, 1 black for an enchantment class. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, each opponent loses 1 life. Level 2, which is for 1 colorless and 1 black. When this class becomes level 2, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. And then level 3, which is 6 colorless and 1 black. At the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses life equal to the life they lost this turn.
Yes.
Yeah, this seems like a pretty fun card. And, okay, consideration. I'm leaving this up.
Yeah,
I'm not even going to say anymore. I'm just going to say I'm going to leave this up. In fact, there we go. No,
Perfect.
That was Bandit's talent, so we're doing that. Okay, Warlock's class. All right.
To roll us back to the vampires, now that we're like on the conversation
All
about
right, so
it.
now classes are in the conversation. Love that.
Yeah. Now that classes are in the conversation, when it comes to building like a life game package that's actually fun to play with and against, it's not a matter of just life gain can't be too easy. The reason why food works in the Fate Cube, just as an example, is that there's an innate cost to it. You have to buy into it if you want to get it. And while it is powerful, while it is good, there's only so much mana that you can afford to just throw at it. When you have too many effects that happen to be incidental or too easy to trigger, then those life gain effects can absolutely bury a player. But there are ways that you can situationally take advantage of that. For example, I really like Falconwrath Noble as a potential add-in here, where it's a 4-drop 2/2 vampire with flying, and whenever it or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So it is one of those incidental trigger things, but what's particularly nice about it is that there's a hoop that you have to jump through. Not only that, it works with some of your other sacrifice engines cards that you have in here.
And it makes cards like Hurricane that are in here actually have a purpose. Because right now, Hurricane's in here, and Hurricane has a very limited target base.
Exactly. And there's only so many times that it can trigger. It is strong, but usually by the time that this is doing its thing, the game is going to be getting to close anyways, right?
Yes.
Because not only is it life gain, it's drain.
And it's drain that's not just like you can. Do I want it to fit into something? Yes, but I also don't want it. I don't necessarily want it to be too incidental. I don't want it to be too easy. Does that make sense? I don't want it to just be too easy to build a life gain deck.
But okay, so I got another card I want to bring up. This matters to me. So now we're gaining life and we're prolonging games and we're kind of got some. We got a little bit of durdles that are happening. So
yes.
I know you don't like aggression, but there needs to be, to me, these Diablo games, these dungeon crawlers, the ones where all the explosions and all the fireworks are going off, they're hack and slashes. That's all they really are.
They are. That's exactly what they are.
Right, so you're hack and slashing. So the games need to end. We talk about that very often.
Yep.
So now I see a card in here like Winds of called Sigma.
Calcisma. Yeah.
Calcisma.
Yep.
For 1 colorless and 1 green, you get an instant. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. Ferocious. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, instead, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn by creatures your opponents control. It's a gotcha card, but all you're really doing is fogging. I'm not a big fan of fogs in environment, especially when this is slower. This can make games go for hours. I mean, people can find ways to loop this. Not that you have it, but
there's no way to loop it.
This is a very much a commander card.
There is no way to loop this, and you're absolutely right that this is a gotcha card, and this can obviously be used defensively or offensively. I tend to look at these kind of cards as very defensive cards, right? I'm looking to, you're going to swing at me. I'm going to try and kill your critical creatures. Cast this. You don't deal any damage. Your big creatures are dead, and then maybe I can do something.
It's kind of a pseudo wrath, but or a combat trait. Combat trait.
It's a combat trait.
Card like Arachnogenesis that I talked about with Nathan that at least puts creatures on the board, wraps the game up. These type of cards just kind of, it's very, you're going to have 4 or greater. That's probably going to be happening.
It's almost certainly going to be happening.
This is just literally a time walk to their combat step.
It could be.
I mean, that's what you're doing.
It could be a time walk, or it could be a huge swing. Like, it really does have the potential to be both.
Sure. I'm not
that's the
I'm not a fan of these type cards.
I'm just saying, that's the logic behind it.
I get it. I'm not a fan of these type cards in Cube for a lot of reasons, but because these games you've already slowed down everything outside of Exalted.
Yes.
You're not putting pressure points on. You're prolonging games. Now
It's definitely meant to be a lot more slow burn earlier, and then the big flashy plays later on.
Art, you got 100, 10 out of 10.
Let's be honest.
But
that's the reason why
gameplay,
it's there. That's the reason.
I'll give you a 3 out of 10.
It's the reason why it's there. You've got this massive horned monster. It's looking down at the little horde of dudes. It's kind of the Act 5, the barbarians that are out that need saving, and you go out there and be the hero. So, here's what I need. As we continue, or as we even, and I will say this, this has been a nice, fairly short and sweet episode, and I don't want this to just become sort of the Cube Doctor episode, even though it kind of has been that. I wanted to share motivations for building this cube, as well as reasons why I'd kind of stifled myself a little bit with a previous cube, and why I had trouble gaining the motivation to get back into continue the development of it. I really do think that this is my first that I'm going to bring to fruition. One of the things that I think that this is a good place to finish on, because you mentioned this earlier about the equipment. The one thing that I think, and maybe this hasn't stuck out to you, but it's certainly something that stuck out to me when I got to the point where I realized, okay, I'm over the 360 mark now, so I'm at the point where I don't have to add cards. I can start taking away cards and making refinements in order to get this to a point where I'm at 360. One thing that would be very, very obvious right off the bat is the significant lack of colorless cards. There really isn't many. In fact, in the current iteration of this cube, there are 7 colorless cards out of, again, 367 cards. Now, I don't think I'm at the position where I just want to say, okay, let's get it down to 360 by removing these 7 cards. There are equipment cards in this cube that exist that are in colors, right? But obviously, the colorless sort of central piece that I found with a lot of other cubes could be around mana fixing, as an example, right? And this is something that Anthony brought up. There's no signets, there's no talismans, there's no fixing in this cube. Green has a couple of options for it, but green isn't also about, getting the elves out. Elves aren't represented in Diablo, so I'm not putting elves in there. I didn't want that to be an identifier for green that, hey, green plays the mana dorks and then plays the big creatures later on. That wasn't something that I wanted as an identity. So now, how does that look to you? The fact that the colorless cards are so low, ignoring the green isn't the ramp thing, but I wanted to press upon that sort of. How do you make an identity now for colorless, right? If green doesn't have that, and I've kind of built out that other identity for green, now I kind of need an identity for how colorless is going to build in. And if your opinion, like you mentioned earlier, is that equipment and things that synergize with the rest of the cube is a way to look to build out and sort of round the numbers out, then I'm absolutely about it. I love me some equipment. But how would you go about building an identity for colorless that way?
I'm going to snuff this real quick. Fleshed out colorless sections are not actually that important. The reason that a lot of these artifact sections are fleshed out the way that they are is because... Sorry. The reason that they're fleshed out the way that they are is because there's going to be filled with pieces that kind of correct certain gameplay. So, like, for example, Signet's Talismans. Things that can mana fix, so think Prophetic Prism. Things that slot into any deck. Think my colorless changelings in the Fey Cube as an example of they're there to fill a specific purpose.
Right.
And when we are looking at this, we are trying to think, okay, what is the thing that I am missing that all of my things want access to, right? And you don't have to splot out, like, dedicate 40 plus slots to your colorless section because it's just not relevant for your cube. If I were to add more, I would start with things that add to your your cube's identity, starting with equipment, because equipment matches the vibe. Secondly, I would throw in things that generate treasures, so equipment that generates treasures, even better. So we are looking for things that fill our vibe. Maybe as a consideration, you can look into some of the artifacts that like let you look at the top card of your library or reveal the top card of your library and get some kind of benefit based off of what's revealed. Okay. Like there was one that makes like a sapperling, I think. Not because the flavor is particularly on point. Like it's not bad. I think it's called Druid Satchel.
Yes.
No.
I know Druid Satchel. Yeah. That sounds right.
Basically, you've got one for each one of your subsets.
Oh, Druidic Satchel.
Druidic Satchel, yes. Thank you.
Yeah. That represents the mechanical identity of what you're trying to do, of, oh, I'm trying to crack open this sort of loot, so to speak, and see what I get. Am I going to get a sapperling? Am I going to get a land? Who knows? And that kind of random element is something that you could explore with your colorless section that could lead to some interesting deck design.
Okay. So I love that. I love the treasures idea, and I love something that is easy to slot into sort of generically into the cube, right? I love that. So let's get your opinion on this one. So this is one that Anthony just passed over to me. This is Temur Monument. This is 2 colorless for an artifact. Whenever this artifact enters, search your library for a basic forest, island, or mountain card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle, and then you can pay 3 colorless and Temur, green, blue, red, tap, sacrifice this artifact, create a 5/5 green elephant creature token, activate only as a sorcery. I don't dislike the effect. Elephants aren't really a Diablo thing, so I don't know if I really care about the elephant thing. But I do like the fact that you've got this 2 mana and then it kind of ramps you. Having the sack ability is pretty cool. What I'm really more looking at is what does the rest of the cycle do? So let's have a look around here. Okay, so now we've got Mardu Monument. 2 colorless and allows you to get a mountain plains or swamp, and then you can pay 5 with Mardu, sack it and create 3 1/1 red warrior creature tokens. They gain menace and haste until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. Yeah, I don't dislike these. I think that the problem for me is I still want to be somewhat of a stickler on flavor until I don't have to be.
So,
right? So these they're not bad.
You have to have an entry point for a dungeon, is my argument. So you're entering the dungeon. That's the best I know of it. You have to have, these are the waypoints.
Are you telling me I should have initiative or dungeon cards in there?
Yes. No.
Yes, you should.
Okay, initiative it is. No. And let me tell you, it was painful for me because every time I looked at those initiatives and those dungeon cards, it took every ounce of my willpower not to include. There was a part of me at some point that thought maybe I just give everybody the initiative right from the start. And obviously that's ridiculous, but you're absolutely right, Anthony, that crawling the dungeon is such an integral part, certainly of Diablo 1, and there's a lot of dungeon crawling in Diablo 2 as well, that I felt like that was such a natural fit. But, again, you've got to, function over form. I cannot include something that's going to be detrimental to the play experience, so I'm not doing it. But I wanted to.
So, as we kind of wrap up here with part 2 of UberCube that we're doing here.
Stay a while and listen.
I do actually remember that. I know what you're talking about before. You didn't give me any context before. I'm like, this is just weird. But I kind of want to tie this off this is a community response thing. So we're going to encourage listeners to look at this cube. You know the flavor. You know what he's trying to do with this cube. It can be interactive. He's looking for active feedback because I would love to get actually one of Stu's cubes in paper someday.
Yes.
That's the end game. Just get one.
And honestly, we've kind of been throwing the ideas back and forth. What I will do is I'm going to post this in our Cube Project Discord, right? I will do this. I will post it in there. So if you're listening to this, it's going to be posted. I'm going to put a link to the Cube and we'll put a link to the podcast episode in the Cube Project post that I put in there and say, hey, this is the Cube that was referenced during this episode. We would like to get some community feedback. We want to hear people's opinion about it. We want to see what kind of ideas the community has. And I think this would be a great... for me in particular, because I would really want to see what kind of ideas other people have of this cube. Not just because, and I will say, the kind of selfish ownership and clutching of pearls that I had with the last cube, and I was like, Anthony, get your hands off my cube. I feel like I've come far enough now with this that I'm emotionally ready for someone to come in and say, here's a bunch of cards I think you could change. We'll get some other community feedback. We'll see how other people feel about that. And then we'll make the changes as necessary because, like you said, I want this to be in paper. I want it to be playable. I want it to be enjoyable. And I think this is a great start for it getting to that point. First of all, a huge thanks, as always, to our Patreons, to Patrick, Jeff, Nick, Chris, Timber Dragon, Brian, Keaton, Lord Justice, Nick, Preston, and Sam. Big thank you to all of you guys for helping us keep the lights on. Really does go a long way. Really want to, again, as we've done the last few weeks, push hard for our UberCubeathon 2025 here in North Carolina at the Gathering Place in Chapel Hill. 64 players, 17 cubes. We have Swiss prizes. The prizes are absolutely out of control. There is a beautifully altered tiger as well as some other signed foil cards. Cannot really state just how excited we are about what is at stake here for this event. It's really going to be fantastic. Again, April 26th at the Gathering Place here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. We have a link to the event that we're going to put in our Discord. Again, I can't really say show notes because we have them, but we don't really have them. Whatever. We look forward to seeing you guys there. If you're local, then please come along and it'll be a great event. We are a TCG affiliate. We have links in our show notes. If you want to come check us out and support the show, then you can go and order your cards for your cube or, again, order your Black Lotuses. Use that link. We would appreciate it. Paladin. Get your Southern Paladins. Get your Jovans. You go get them. Your time walks right now. If you want to get on the discussion at facebook.com/groups/MTGCube, where Anthony here is an administrator. You know what that does to your, anyway. Over 1,000 members there. A lot of great conversation. inkedgaming.com/UberCube. Go and check them out. Playmats, dice bags, mouse pads, all kinds of custom and large volume products available. You can find us at Twitter at UberCubeMTGPod or at Bluesky, UberCubeMTGPodcast.bsky.social. You can also reach us via email if you've got a longer question or comment, or if you'd just like to reach out to us about the show. We are UberCubeMTGPodcast@gmail.com. As always, find us on our Discord. And again, to our Patreons at patreon.com/UberCube. A big thanks to all of you. We love you.
And other than that, we're going to say the thing that we always say here at UberCube is Happy
cubing. Stay a while and listen.